All right, we're going to go ahead and start. Others will join, and as they join, we'll let them in. Steve, we don't hear your audio, so if you want to bring your audio and video up, that'd be great. So my name is Marshall Krupp. I am an EOS implementer, and through the sanctions of EOS, we have in Southern California created the EOS Hour, which is going to be conducted once a month on the fourth Monday from 9 to 10 o'clock. The goal of this EOS Hour is to have a virtual mastermind group with peers. So we're calling you all peers at this point that you've joined us. It's a time to connect with business colleagues. It's a place to gain knowledge and ideas, and most importantly, an opportunity for you to discuss and work through business issues as you're willing to do so and share in this virtual reality that we've created. Every month, if you want to join us, it does require re-registration so that you can get the link for the virtual meeting. So every meeting, we're going to start off with a topic. Hopefully the topic will be inspirational, it'll be of value, and maybe it'll give us an opportunity to open up some thoughts that you may have around the subject that you may want to bring into the discussion. So let's go forward, and we'll spend the first 25 minutes on the discussion of accountability. What I've experienced in my observation of working with businesses, and I've worked with thousands of them over the years. Right now with EOS, I'm running probably around 200 businesses I'm working with. Accountability is an overused buzzword. It has many different interpretations, and it's lost much of its true meaning over time because it's used so regularly. So let's get on the same page with regards to definitions of accountability. So first we have the concept of accountability itself, to be answerable for something within one's power or control, and to account for that, or having the obligation to report, explain, and justify something. Another word that sometimes is interrelated with accountability is integrity, keeping one's promises and doing the right thing. And the last one is a word that sometimes relates to accountability is responsibility. It's taking 100% ownership for one's decisions, words, actions, behaviors, and results. Okay, so those are the words that sometimes interchangeably are used around the concept of creating an accountability culture. What I think accountability means is the willingness to call out performance and behavior that might hurt the purpose of the business. So that's what really I think accountability is all about. The willingness to call out the performance and behavior that might hurt the purpose of the business. And that requires us getting into the danger zone without hesitation. We got to be willing to call out people when their behaviors and their performance are not in integrity with the core values of the company. So here's what, in the most simplest terms, this is what it means. Doing what you said you would do, as you said you would do it, when you said you would do it, period. That's the simplest way of explaining what accountability is all about. Now let's get some clarity around the concept of accountability. The first thing is behavior is assumed correct unless it's corrected. So when we have an organization that has poor behavior and we don't do anything about it, we're actually given permission for it to exist. And so our choice as leaders are to do something different if we don't want it to happen. The second is accountability is 90% communication and 10% discipline. We have to be constantly communicating what accountability is all about. And holding someone accountable can create the feeling of discomfort. It is very uncomfortable for human beings to try to bring to the attention of others that their behavior or their performance is not in integrity with what is being expected, right? It's uncomfortable to do that. There may be a point of hesitation right before you hold someone accountable when a voice says to you the following: maybe I really don't have to do this. So there's always that last moment message to yourself that the gremlin on your shoulder comes and says, hey, maybe I don't really have to do this. So let's talk about the reasons why we don't create cultures of accountability or hold people accountable. So number one, I wasn't clear on what I said. So how can I hold someone accountable if I wasn't clear on what I said that expected them to do? The second, there are good excuses and reasons for lack of integrity. There's a good excuse or a reason for someone not having done something. Number 8, no one else holds accountable. No one else holds people accountable. So why should I? In an organization, everybody has to create the culture of accountability. Number 7, I may have to do something about it. If I call someone out, I may have to do something about it and cause a change to take place, and I don't want to do anything about it. Number 6, I don't have time. That's one of the biggest excuses that we leaders use. I'm too busy doing other things to spend time trying to hold my people accountable. Number 5, I don't want to be in conflict with those around me. Okay, there's the interpersonal thing that takes place when we're trying to hold someone accountable. Number 4, I may expose myself and they may see me for who I really am, right? I have a facade that I may be carrying around, and as soon as I try to hold someone accountable, that facade may come down and they may see me for who I really am. Number 3, I want to avoid the painful emotional discomfort or rejection. How many of you have colleagues who are friends? You go to lunch, it's tough to go and hold them accountable when emotional discomfort that might unfold, right? So we don't want to get rejected. Number 2, it's simply easier to do it myself. Rather than holding someone accountable and teaching them and training them and trying to get them to do what is expected, we do it ourselves, and we take up the time to do it ourselves. And the last is, if I hold them accountable, they will hold me accountable. So that's part of having a true accountability program, is to turn all of these 10 into positives and take action on the 10. So all of these come from a place of fear. All of these 10 come from a place of fear. And here's the relationship of, here are the kinds of fears that we undertake as human beings. The fear of failing, okay? Fear of failing. We all have some part of fear of failing, and it comes from a need for success. Fear of rejection. We don't like to be rejected. Comes from a need of acceptance. Fear of emotional discomfort, the need to be emotionally comfortable. And last is the fear of being or looking wrong, the need to be or look right. Okay? Too many of us are not living our dreams because we are living our fears. We're making our decisions coming from a fearful place. I will add one more thing here that I want you to recognize, is there are some people who fear success. There's a combination of fear of failure and or the fear of success. Because once successful people get to be successful, then where do you go? That's the fear. Where do you go from here when we're at a successful place, or the fear of losing that success after we've attained it? So these fears are the 4 fatal fears that most human beings face. And then I love this quote that Will Smith said in After Earth. The movie was terrible, but the quote was great. Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is the product of imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Now, do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. Danger is real, but fear is a choice. So I want you to recognize that when we're being challenged around creating an accountability culture, we've got to ask ourselves, is fear driving us in some way from attaining that accountability culture that we're looking for. Our main fear in holding people accountable is that our interaction with another will be emotional. Okay? That's the fear, the emotional discomfort of challenging another person. To get over this fear, we must understand there has to be emotion or no change will take place. Emotion is what changes behavior. It's the only thing that changes behavior. We have to create some emotion in ourselves or others that causes us to make the choice to change our behavior. We are doing ourselves a disservice, others and the organization a disservice when we do not hold ourselves and others accountable for the performance of behavior. Success is therefore in jeopardy. So we're doing a disservice when we don't create a culture of accountability. And if we don't create that culture of accountability, we will sooner or later sink. The failure will take place. So let's talk a little bit about how we create an accountability culture. Number one is we have to have commitments and agreements, explicit, implicit, and that's the only way to an accountability culture. You cannot have an accountability culture without having agreements. Agreements are as simple as I'm choosing to work for the company. That's an agreement, right? It could be as easy as we have KPIs. Are you accepting our KPIs? We're asking you to follow it. That's an agreement. Some of those are implicit, some of them are explicit. When we actually all have an agreement with the state of California. Anybody know what that agreement is? It's called the driver's license. When we get our driver's license, we sign the agreement with the state that says we are going to comply with all state laws, even though we very seldomly do, right? But we have agreements all around us, and you're doing that implicitly and explicitly all the time. Agreements have to be smart. They have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. The reason why I've highlighted measurable and time-bound is because you can't have an agreement unless there's a measurement attached to it and a time frame attached to it. Agreements have to have measurements and time frames, whether they're KPIs, whether they're months, days, or weeks, right? The most significant consequence of breaking an agreement is loss of trust, because it's not the loss of trust today, but it is the anticipated loss of trust in the future as a result of breaking agreements. So the process of accountability is this. You've heard me say, hold people accountable. Now I'm going to turn that around on you, because this is the truth about real accountability. Number one, I cannot hold you accountable. I cannot hold you accountable. You cannot hold anyone else accountable. All you can do is to make you aware through feedback that you're out of integrity with an agreement or commitment you have made, including performance and behaviors. All I can do is bring to your attention that you're out of the agreement that you've committed to with me, either in performance or behavior. And the last is only you or the person who's out of integrity can hold themselves accountable. So when we talk about holding people accountable in our companies, in our lives, I want you to know there's nothing we can do about that. We can say that all the time, but in essence, the only one that can hold a person out of integrity accountable is that person himself. And the only thing we can do is to bring it to that person's attention. Accountability is not intended to be punitive. Okay, I want to make sure you understand that. Accountability is not intended to be punitive. When we were kids, we learned that when we didn't do something, we were punished. Therefore, we have related accountability to punishment. Accountability is not punishment. Accountability is to seek and gain behavioral change. That's the goal all the time, is to seek behavioral change. If we get the behavioral change, then we move in a positive direction. Behavioral change comes from recognition of the unwanted, intended or unintended consequences. or the unwanted impacts. So we can only get behavioral change when we generate clarity around what's going on. When human beings generally want to hide, deny, and repress the recognition of deeper consequences and impacts, since they may have to do something about it. As human beings, when we take responsibility for poor behaviors and poor actions, we are forced to make a change. We are forced to recognize that that behavior is unacceptable and we need to do something about it. Behavioral change comes from a series of other recognitions. Because we are generally comfortable with personal behavioral norms, there's a resistance in not identifying new behaviors that may feel uncomfortable. We want to be comfortable. If we identify uncomfortable changes, we will be uncomfortable and we resist that. And the greatest recognition of behavior comes from uncovering the deepest places of our unconscious mind. Most of us are unconscious to the behaviors that are acceptable, and we stay with the norms that many times are unacceptable. So we have people around us, we have employees around us who many times have repetitive, unacceptable behaviors. So while accountability is not intended to be punitive, repetitive, unacceptable behavior must be addressed. And in essence, it becomes punitive. So here's how I get people to fulfill their commitments. I give them two options. Option one, fulfill my expectations, be in integrity, stay focused on core values, do what we are asking you to do. The other is you make the choice that you don't want to do that. I don't make that choice. You make that choice. So combined, fulfill my expectations, or you're making the choice to leave our organization. In 33 years of me running my company, I never fired a single individual. Although I had a lot of individuals leave the company by using that concept. Excuses versus reasons. So in my world of accountability, excuses are not permitted. An excuse is an explanation put forward to defend or justify fault, offense, or situation. Now, an excuse is something I've had some level of control over what happened. Okay, that's an excuse. A reason is a cause of explanation or justification for an action or an event. I had no control over what happened. So if I have an EOS session meeting and I'm late to that session meeting because my alarm clock didn't go off, that's an excuse and it's unacceptable because I had control over being there on time. On the other hand, if on the way to my meeting, there's an earthquake and I'm caught up in the earthquake, I had no control over the earthquake. Therefore, that is a justifiable reason for being late to the meeting. Okay? In my world, there's this concept of 100%/0. 100% means this in my business and in my relationships with my clients. 100% accountability, 0 excuses. Now notice I didn't include reasons. Reasons are acceptable, but 100% accountability, 0 excuses. So accountability is at the foundation of what business is all about. If you have clients or you have businesses or in your business life, you establish a culture of accountability that is the strongest foundation for going forward, because that foundation of accountability supports trust, and trust is what's critical in relationships. So Steve Jobs was not wrong when he said the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. And my invitation to you is to start to think about how accountability can be the foundation for you going forward. So we are at the end of the presentation part of the meeting. right? Now it's an opportunity for us to have a discussion and to answer questions and to process any issues that you may have that would be valuable for you to get the input from those who are participating on this webinar today. Understand that this webinar it is being recorded, and it will be posted on our YouTube uh,
channel.
Thank you, YouTube channel. And if any of you would like a copy of the the recording, just send me an email. I'll be happy to send it to you. The only other thing I'd like to share with you at this point is this is the launch date for the EOS Hour. We believe we are working towards having this screen and multiple screens filled with people like you for 1 hour a month for them to gain the expertise in the areas and topics that we will be discussing. And hopefully you'll participate and be trusted advisors to each other so that we can get greater value out of this 1 hour once a month. So with that, we're going to open it up. What I would appreciate you do, if you raise your hand, either raise your hand by doing it this way, or raise your hand by the app that's in Zoom, and then we'll start our discussion. But first, I'd like to hear any ideas, any thoughts, any disagreement, any agreement, any ideas of how to execute more effectively, accountability. It's now for you. Please unmute your mics and show us your beautiful smiles. So who would like to share first? Oh, come on, I wasn't that good. Pete, we'll start with you. Oh, Steve.
Actually, Steve's got his hand up.
He does. Steve, please
How's
share.
everyone doing? Can you see me okay?
We can, thank you.
Okay, good to meet everyone. Marshall, thank you. That was very dense and very concise. So I'm just wondering from your perspective, there's oftentimes this very much top-down kind of authoritative approach to accountability, and I'm just wondering how you recommend or how you generally instill a sense of peer-to-peer accountability so the teams start holding each other accountable as opposed to more or less the authoritative top-down approach.
Yeah. So the first thing is this. There are a couple approaches that you can take. Number one, you have to create the culture first, or you have to start to build the culture slowly. Part of building the culture is giving people in the organization permission to be part of this accountability culture, which includes behavioral change. Remember, it's not about, hey, I'm trying to make you wrong. It's about me trying to make you aware that if you do some things that are different, those behaviors will benefit you, it'll benefit your interpersonal relationships, and it will benefit the organization as a whole. So it's not a top-down directive or initiative. It's a collaborative agreement between everyone in the organization saying, this is good for the organization, right, as a whole. That's number one. Number two is, I love the concept of accountability buddies at different levels. So let's say we have a management level. Rather than making accountability buddies at the management level, have a manager with a lower level or a manager with an upper level, so that you have, instead of creating these hierarchies in the organization, we're creating accountability buddies that are different levels and they're working together. And the concept of hierarchy starts to go away. It just starts to melt away, right? The other thing that's really important around accountability, there has to be a set of core values that everyone is aligned with. There has to be core values. I go into so many organizations where they say we have core values, and they're written on a piece of paper, but that's the last of it. We don't see it on their websites. We don't see it in their decision making. We don't see it in the work product that's coming out. I go around in companies and I'll go to a person at a desk and ask them, how is what you're doing right now in integrity with the core value? And then they say, well, I don't even know what the core values are. So there has to be an alignment of core values. And once we get everybody aligned with the core values, that's an agreement. And once we have the agreement, we can hold people accountable. Remember, we can't hold them accountable, but we can make them aware that their behaviors are not in integrity with those core values. And then we can bring it down to different levels. We can bring it to KPIs. We can bring it to rocks or initiatives that need to get done over the 90 days and so forth and so on. Does that answer your
Thank you.
question, Steve?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Good. Michael.
So I liked what you said there right at the end, and I was going to add to it, which is you don't get accountability through an organization without transparency, which is what you were alluding to. It starts with the core values, but beyond transparency, there has to be visibility. The organization from top to bottom has to be able to see it happen with their own eyes. And there has to be some method by which it is marked and tracked, right? That is the key component of where you get the culture of accountability. And so if it happens behind closed doors, I'm not saying it can't be effective. It can have behavioral impact one to another, but you don't get transformative organizational impact.
Absolutely. Let me share this. As I said, accountability can only be there if there are agreements. The agreements is the exposure, right? We're identifying, here's the agreement. The agreement has to be smart. It has to have a measurable in it. So it's very clear, you attain the measurable, you're in integrity with the agreement. If Michael, you and I decided to go to lunch and the date to go to lunch and the agreement was, let's go to TGI Fridays on Friday, we'll meet at noon at this location, and you come 10 minutes late, you're out of integrity with the agreement because the agreement says be there at noon. If you come 5 minutes early, you're actually out of integrity with the agreement also because the agreement was be there at noon. So we've got to be very clear about the agreements. We have to be very clear about the measurements. And most often, as you said, Michael, we have to be transparent about it. And we have to agree to live by this culture that we're creating. Good point, Mike. Thank you. Who else? Okay, Pete, come on.
Are you sure?
Oh, I'm always sure with you, Pete.
Okay, so this is the question I would ask. If what you're talking about is accountability, I think the basic question would be, show me how you hold yourself accountable to the tasks at hand day by day, because it starts with the individual. So if I'm trying to do this as a company or as a department, I've got to be able to demonstrate to the people that I'm interfacing with that I hold myself accountable. And there's my list of accountability for today. Actually, Marshall was number 1 on the list and I erased him because we're already having the meeting. Then he gets moved over to this list, which says those accountability things that I said I was going to do today, I start putting them on my list of being done. Now, if the company's doing that or the department is doing that, now you get to scale, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely true, Pete. We have to model what we expect others to do. And if we don't model it, then we're basically telling our colleagues, our peers, our employees that it's okay not to be accountable. And we give them permission rather than saying it in words, rather than going out, having an all hands meeting and saying, I'm making the announcement that you guys do not have to fulfill your commitments. We are saying it by our actions, and our employees are smart. They are smart. They watch us all the time. And if our actions are out of integrity with our words, we're going to have a problem. Absolutely. And I love, Pete, the concept of putting it on a list and then recognizing completion, because one of the things that we leaders do the worst is recognition, recognizing ourselves for our successes and recognizing our employees for their successes. So when we write it down, that's part of the recognition and reward that we get from it. So good point, Pete. Okay, who else? Sean, I see you there. Richard, I see you there also. Any thoughts from you guys?
Hey, Sean Jenkins here. I'm currently driving, so I don't get to see you guys, but I'm definitely listening. I guess what I would say about accountability is, as Pete said, really it starts with leadership's kind of showing that first, and we're experiencing that real time. So while we've had some great hires, we've also had some really tough hires where we have had to really kind of figure out, hey, are we living out our core values well, even by allowing some of this behavior, whether it be behavioral or with respect to them meeting their measurables. Are we living out our core values by allowing that to continue? So it's been some tough lessons of late for sure, as it relates around accountability, but good message for sure.
Good, excellent. Let's see. How about Steve? We're back to Steve. He's got his hand up. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Marshall. Quick, so just a follow-up question. How do you distinguish the right behaviors to call out in a group setting versus a one-on-one setting?
Good. So the rule is this. We criticize in private, we reward and praise in public. That's the general rule. Criticize in private, reward and recognize in public. Now, I will tell you that when you have a company that's running on EOS and we have a leadership team, and that leadership team is working together, aligned and moving in the right direction, what I ask of my clients and my leadership teams is to be open, honest, transparent, and vulnerable. That means anything is acceptable in a closed meeting among the leadership team. And if you roll EOS out to other departments, other management units, and you do it in the same way that you've maintained it at the leadership level, you can create a culture of open, honest, transparent, and vulnerable. Okay. The problem is that we live in a society where it's human nature to take things personally. So as we implement EOS, we've got to make sure that we're teaching the concept of not taking things personally, but looking at it as a way to better the organization. It's never about the individual, it's about the organization. And the individual is a part of the organization. So we have to train people to look at the organization differently than they have in the past. They're not employees, they're part of the machinery of the organization.
Thank you. That helps.
Good. Nicole, I saw before you were smiling and you were also nodding your head.
Thank you, Marshall. This was very insightful. I appreciate it. One of the many things that you said, which resonated with me, was holding someone accountable can create feelings of discomfort. In my current role, I deal with a lot of visionaries when they are needing to find the right people for the right seat. And I hear this all the time, Marshall, right? It's very uncomfortable. They know in the back of their head that they need to either let someone go, right? Or they're in the wrong seat. And they have a sense of loyalty or a sense of it's going to get better. And so this really resonated with me, and it's the truth.
Yeah, right people, right seats is an interesting subject matter, because we all want the right people in the right seats. we all know generally what the right person is and generally what the right seat is. Then we make decisions and we sit back and see our thoughts deteriorate. And then when we have to make the decision to correct it, we choose not to because it's uncomfortable. And so we live with it. And we live with it. And at some point, the pain is so bad, we finally make the decision. I guess the question is, how soon do you want to go to the doctor to relieve the pain? You know,
Exactly.
you want to wait a year and live through with that pain for a year? Or do you want to make the decision, hey, I can go down today, get a shot, and the pain's gone? And we have to learn as leaders, and we have to teach as teachers that pain needs to be addressed when felt. Pain needs to be-
Absolutely.
Good. All right, Larry, haven't said anything yet. I'm going to invite you into the conversation.
I'm here more as an investigative thing. I recently attended a buying group meeting in our industry where they held a panel where a few of the members of the group were on EOS. And I am looking for the opportunity to possibly do something with EOS. So when I saw that this was an opportunity to drop in and listen to this, I jumped on it, and I have a very unique, somewhat uncomfortable situation that I'm not prepared to share right now, but I am looking for a way to establish a path forward for our company, and I'm looking for someone to assist with that.
Got it. So Larry, we call it the EOS Hour because I'm an EOS implementer and because I believe in the EOS system. Okay. I've used systems throughout the years. Pete knows me going way back. And I've used different systems. And what I believe and what I've observed is that EOS works. It just works. All right. Now, that said, I believe this. Implementers don't go out and find businesses for EOS. Businesses find implementers to execute EOS. The fact that you're here is no accident because you're looking for someone to assist you. After this, if you want to get in touch with us, I'd be happy to spend some time with you and give you some more information if that's your desire. Your choice in the end.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes left. So here's what I'd like to do. James, we haven't heard from you either. So can we get some thoughts from you? You have to unmute.
Hello, Marshall.
Hello, James. How you doing?
Good, good. I think this goes back to a meeting in at either Costa Mesa or Newport Beach from a few months ago. I believe you spoke there at an
Yeah.
EOS meeting. And so, yeah, I was just out of curiosity. I thought, well, maybe I can pick up a few pointers and just jump into the lecture. And so I appreciate everything that you shared, and hopefully I'll put it to some good use.
Good. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Richard, haven't heard from you. I'd like to get everybody at least one time in. Got to unmute, Richard. Okay. All right. Here's the next thoughts I would like to ask of you. Does any one of you have an issue or challenge or opportunity that you would like to gain some thoughts, advice, ideas from the group that's here today? Be selfish. Be selfish. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Yes.
Marshall, can I make a comment? Okay.
Yes.
Now, you and I know each other going back to the Vistage days.
Yes,
And I think I mentioned to you my experience with Vistage China, in that when you ask this kind of a question, the people in the meeting, particularly in China, keep everything close to their vest. They're not going to say anything. In fact, so how's your business going? If they go, perfect, perfect. And you find that this guy's overdrawn at the blood bank, okay? A way to do this might be, as of today, Monday, at such and such a time, what do you regard as your number one priority over the next week? Because there isn't a person in this meeting, even Sybil, who's sitting there, who's been quiet the entire time, who, if you ask her that question, she'd say, I got such and such to do. And so now you got a baseline to start from. Just a thought.
that's a great idea. Let's ask the question. Pete, repeat the question. Let's hear. And
Okay,
let's,
the question is, what would you regard as your number one priority for this week? Of all the things you could accomplish, what would you regard as your number one priority? And Larry would be a good guy to start with, because he's already expressed an interest in coming up with a system to help solve his issues.
okay, Larry? Seeing
Um,
that Pete challenged you?
my number one for the next week has been my number one for the past 6 to 8 months, and I'm not getting anywhere. We are a family business and are having a huge struggle with succession and transition.
With what? What transition?
Succession and transition.
Perfect, perfect.
Go ahead, Pete. Ask the next question.
Well, no, that, what I would do is, I would go around and have every one of them give us their number one issue. And then, I'm assuming that Sybil's part of your team?
Yes, she is.
So I'd have Sybil keeping track of these things, typing the stuff in on a cloud-based system. And this way you could come back to everybody afterwards, particularly Larry, and say, okay, let's take a look at your org chart and the way they're currently laid out, and what the process might be to go forward, because he's looking for visible forward progress right now. And that's the kind of thing that EOS specializes in. By the way, I'm not an EOS guy. But what I'm saying is, once you figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish, then you can start to move towards stabilizing this thing and getting your arms around it bit by bit.
Good idea. So, Michael, answer the question, if you would, please.
Michael, your number one priority.
Build my top of funnel.
Build your top of funnel. So what you're saying is, of all of the people that you have at the top of your funnel that are coming down through this sounds to me like a business development issue, right?
Yes.
It's not a sales issue. A sales issue is they're at the bottom of the funnel and they haven't popped out. Now I got to sell them.
Yep.
A business development is I got to get them into the funnel at the very top. Okay, so in order to address that, of course, you'd be talking to Marshall about, so how am I getting people into the top of the funnel, and what does that list look like? Now you probably have this on a contact management system, would be my guess.
I do. Part of filling my top of funnel is continuing to build out the CRM. So
Got it. So let's do this, because we only have a couple minutes left. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to go through Pete's process. I love it, Pete. Thank you for offering it. So let's go to Steve. Steve, you have an answer to the question?
I do. Thank you, Marshall. My priority this week is to convert a fairly substantial contract into a closed sale.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. Any other, do you want to add anything else to that?
Can I think about it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, James, let's go with you next.
Okay, so I kind of resonated with what Michael said. Top of funnel, marketing, expanding my network, trying to ramp up my business. So that's my priority for this week.
Good, excellent. All right, Ed, if you'll unmute you, let's hear what you have to say. I think I'm gonna.
I'm going to go back to what Larry said, and having run a family-owned business for a number of years, and worked with you, Marshall, and some clients, and running an L10. I just, it all starts with vision and strategy, but most importantly, specifically in a family-owned business, the leadership team. And you mentioned it a few minutes ago. Right person, right seat, and I think that's imperative to move the company forward, to make sure that the right leadership team is in place.
Got it. And what's your answer to Pete's question?
You've got to constantly, as you drive the business and work the business, you constantly got to be working the top of the funnel, like Michael talked about.
Okay, and what is the one important thing that you should be working on this week?
Make my wife happy. That's the most important thing in my life.
All right, good. All right, Nicole, you're next.
I guess just to piggyback, Marshall, on what I said earlier, is to really be able to help the visionaries that I'm currently speaking with, to help them fill their integrator seats and to help fill those L10 seats. Because whenever you have the right people for the right seats, you really bring a lot of peace of mind.
Beautiful. All right, let's go with who we haven't hit. Alec, as long as you're on the line, Alec is my executive assistant. So Alec, what is the one thing that you have to do? What's the priority next week?
I think I need to reach out to you guys with any ideas, or maybe you will reach out to me if you have any ideas towards the Marshall. So my job is to support my boss.
Good, excellent. All right, Sybil, you wanna add yours?
Yeah, sure. So since we're starting March next week, I'm planning to start with my monthly list, making sure that I'm starting every task right. So yeah.
Good. So I want to go around the room real quick. I think we've hit everybody. I want to go around the room real quick. I want you to identify what your company is, just so that we can get that out to everybody who's in the room right now. Pete, let's start with you real quick.
The Peer Advisory Forum, I'm a strategic analyst.
Great. Nicole?
Nicole Ewald with Vision Spark. We are an EOS run recruiting firm.
Good. James?
I'm a business broker with M&A Business Advisors in the Orange County office.
You want to repeat it? I think we got broken up a little bit.
I'm a business advisor with M&A Business Advisors in the Orange County office.
Good. Ed?
Yeah, SPG Consulting, and I work with CEOs, and I run L10 meetings. All of my clients are running on EOS, so I work with Marshall and the like to make sure we get things headed in the right direction.
Great. Steve?
I'm the founder of Completing. We do process automation, process improvement, and efficiency.
Good. And Larry?
Larry Gray the third, Edmund A. Gray Company in Los Angeles. We are a 114-year-old manufacturing company specializing in pipe, valve, and fittings.
Nice. Did you say pipe fittings?
Yeah, pipe, valve, and fittings. Yeah. So
Wow.
we're actually manufacturing. We're making stuff in Los Angeles, which is kind of a rarity these days.
Yeah, it really is.
That's for sure.
Okay, Michael.
Hi, guys. I'm a fractional CXO. I most often land as a fractional COO. I come alongside entrepreneurs who are growing businesses, often loosely, and I help bring executive rigor, process rigor, infrastructure rigor to the company.
Good. So in the last couple of minutes, here's what I would like to do. This has been great. First of all, our next March meeting is, I believe, March 26th. Okay. Fourth Monday of every month. This is a great place to connect and get relationships going. We're happy to send out the names of the people who register. So if you're interested in a list, we can certainly make that available to you if you want it. The other thing I would invite you to do is spread the rumor that this is a real thing. We will be around for the next 5 years, I guarantee you, and we will build this into a community of hundreds of people who will be joining us on these calls, I hope. So please spread the rumor around, spread it to your clients. We want your clients to come because they can learn good pieces, and make it a gift to them, right? Gift it to them. It's free, so an hour out of their day shouldn't be bad. So bring your clients, bring your vendors, bring your potential clients, bring whoever you want to this forum, because I think there'll certainly be a lot of value that will come from it over time. And the same way that Pete is offered suggestion of how to approach the question today, I'd like to go around the room right now and get any thoughts or ideas that you may have that we could use to do it differently, do it in a different way, add to it, whatever thoughts you may have. I'd like to hear that right now and give you an opportunity to do that. So, Michael, let's start with you.
I just wanted to make a comment. Larry, I have a large network of people who can help with transitions, maybe even pro bono conversation, if that's interesting to you. But Marshall, this is a really important conversation. I'm privileged to be a part of it. So as time goes by, I may have comments.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Steve, let's go to you.
I think probably the hardest part, I'm just spitballing here, Marshall, but the hardest part for me is, I think, helping the CEOs or the client, the leadership team understand that modeling and being the example of accountability starts with them.
Yep.
Because they're setting the tone for their teams. And I imagine in all of our books, it's not acceptable to have a double standard where you expect a certain degree of accountability within your teams, but your leaders aren't modeling the way. And I think the challenge I have is just helping leaders be the model, I guess.
Good. All right, Nicole, any suggestions for us on what we can do different or what we might add to this?
I thought it was fantastic. I took a page and a half of notes, so thank you, Marshall.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good. James?
Excuse me, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I enjoyed it as well. Took a lot of mental notes. Great to meet everybody and to hear, all the different stories. And like I said, I just hope I'll be able to put it to good use, and I'm looking forward to the next session.
Good. Ed?
Oh.
Yeah, good morning. And very familiar with EOS and the power that it brings. My comment to you, Marshall, would be, I believe you would get a much greater turnout if we got away from Mondays.
Interesting. Okay, we'll take that. I'll reach out to you and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Thanks. Michael, I see your hand on.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I would feel most comfortable if what you're posting on YouTube is only the presentation section and not the vulnerability section.
Yes. Yes, that's our plan. Thank you, Mike. And Larry, you're last, and then we'll conclude.
Actually, question is how many of the people who have signed up that are in this meeting right now actually run their businesses with EOS?
Let's see. Michael is. I don't know on here, but we certainly could connect you with people who run businesses on EOS.
Right.
Anything we
Thank you.
could, anything we could do different, Larry, that would enhance what we brought to you today?
No, I would echo that Monday mornings is a little tough.
That's good to know. It's good to know. Get that feedback. Pete, you got the last word. Or no,
What I would suggest, if you want some thoughts on this, Marshall, give me a call afterwards and we can talk about it. But I think when I met you, you were running a morning meeting that was a networking meeting a while back. And we went and developed something called the Orange County Business Forum that used a similar format. And we just stopped doing that back in October because I got tired of doing it. But it uses a format similar to what I was telling you earlier, and I can share with you all that information. You can just use it as if it was your own.
nice. Thank you, Pete. All right. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I believe in the concept, we start on time, we end on time. Ending on time can mean ending a little bit earlier to accommodate the needs of everybody. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope this was of value. I hope next time you bring 2 or 3 guests with you as a gift to them. Think of it. Don't think of it as you're inviting them to be part of an event. Invite them because there's a gift that you're giving them that they may get some value out of. So use it from that perspective. Everybody good? All right.